Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's live stream, well this afternoon's actually. We are really excited to have everyone here and of course to really dive into the film industry here in Australia. As most of you know, we've got a great new course, a filmmaking course that's starting on all of our different campuses this year. So it's actually, we've got our first day of classes tomorrow, which is really exciting, and to celebrate that we thought we'd invite Ash along, who's been working with the MAPS Film School, who's worked combined with AIE, so we thought we'd get her experience and expertise and hear all about the film industry here in Australia. So make sure you add all of your questions into the chat and we'll be able to help out and answer any of them live with Ash. But that's pretty much it from me. Matt, do you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you so much, Emma, and yes, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being with us, and a big thank you to Ash as well. Welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here, Matt.
So yes, as Emma very kindly introduced the show, and also a lot of exciting news for 2022, I guess we'll jump straight into some questions for you, Ash. So I guess to begin with, do you want to just talk a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Yeah, sure. I sort of saw the photos on the promo just as we were loading. So I'm a writer-director. The one of me directing, I was directing a TVC for the Queensland Government for a domestic violence awareness campaign. So I tend to choose my projects in a bit of a way that I sort of do love jobs. The other photo in there was me when I was speaking at Tim Winton's The Turning. I wrote and directed a chapter of that, which was a feature film that was made up of 17 different stories. So I sort of adapted one of Tim Winton's stories and directed that episode. So I've sort of was a bit late coming to film. I spent a lot of time backpacking when I was younger, which was a lot of fun. So did a lot of backpacking between my 20s and 30s. Like to see the world. And then I went to uni and did the, double degree, got a psychology degree and a double major in psychology and film studies. Probably should have taken the psychology route, which would probably been a little bit more stable, but decided to go to the film studies side. And that's when I got involved with MAPS Film School. Instead of doing honours, I decided to do MAPS, which is now what the AIE is kind of running out, which is a fairly practical course. And then my time there, I was reading, done a variety of jobs in the film industry. I was working up at Loxton for Win TV, and I stumbled across a short story written by Peter Goldsworthy, who's an Australian author. He's written a lot of great stuff. And I read a short story of his called The Kiss, and I just fell in love with it. And I just thought, oh, wow, this is just the most amazing story. And so I rang his agent and the publisher, and they said, oh, that the option's already taken. You can't use it. You can't adapt it. Someone's trying to do that. And I was like, oh, no, that's what I really wanted to make that film. And so then I rang back 6 months later just on a whim, and they said, oh, it's been returned, so you can try. And so I did, and we adapted that, and Peter was really happy with it, which was important to me with the adaptation. He was a bit sceptical at first because I changed the gender of the characters. The two characters in the original story were two boys, and I changed it to two girls. And at first he was quite sceptical, and I said, look, I'll send you the script. And he sent me back an email with just one word, and it was just brava. And I just thought, okay, cool. So we're good to go, because there's no way you would want to adapt an author's work and not have them happy. I mean, the whole point is that you really respect their work, and you want to add and create a larger audience for that work. So that was really important to me. So that was my first funded film, and that was funded through the South Australian Film Corp and Screen Australia. And that did really well nationally and internationally. So we won a lot of awards, a couple of AFI awards and Sydney Film Festival and Flickerfest and Melbourne Emerging Filmmaker Award. And so that won quite a lot of awards. And then I also then started focusing on script writing, and I got a Global Filmmaking Award from Sundance in 2014, and also a script writing fellowship. So that led me to doing a lot of writing, which I still do now. So I still do a lot of script writing. So I'm part-time at the AIE, and I try to balance my own private work as well as teaching. And I think that's the beauty of the vet sector. I just love working in the vet sector. I mean, I really respect what happens in university, but the vet sector is the place for me because it's vocational education. And a lot of the people who are teachers are actually still practicing their craft in the industry, or they're stepping out of the industry for a little while teaching and then stepping back in. And so it's really vocational based, and it's really practical. And I'm very much the sort of person who learns by doing, and that's how we teach. So it suits me as a teacher because I just feel like I'm just sharing knowledge that I have, and we're always keeping our skills updated as well. That's the beauty of still being in the industry, making sure that you're still engaged and excited, which is like with this new virtual production stuff is just like mind-blowingly exciting. So it was sort of, you can't wait to get stuck into that new technology. I worked originally, set up my own business as a DVD author. You've got to do a lot of stuff to sort of get started in the film industry. It's a challenging industry. I've done boom swinging on a feature film. But so I really loved, some of your audience might not know what DVDs are. They're these round things that, you put them in. I think some people don't. VHS, that's right. Remember what that is? So I got into DVD authoring. I was one of the first people in Adelaide to kind of do that, and so then I started teaching, and that's how I got into teaching, because someone said, can you teach us how to do DVD authoring? And I was like, sure, okay. And I actually really enjoyed that process of, I just see teaching as just sharing knowledge. And sharing knowledge that is something that you're passionate about. So I did a lot of DVD authoring and content creation for my own business, but then I stepped into more adapting and directing, and now more script writing. So that's kind of me. I am a sort of person who only does what they love to do. I don't get out of bed unless I want to do things. I only do love jobs. I do things that I enjoy. So I never make content that I'm really happy with. So I live a pretty quiet life, live in the hills and with my dog, and just sort of, I kind of really enjoy the filmmaking, and I love having the balance of teaching and being challenged by new students, and keeping fresh and keeping your skills up by teaching, which is great. So that's a bit about me.
Excellent. Now, I would not be doing justice to our audience if I didn't ask. You did say you have a dog. What sort of dog do you have?
Oh my God, I love my dog. So she's a puppy, so she's only 5 months. Thank you for asking, Matt. So she's a cross between a golden retriever and a Murray River curly coat retriever. So she looks like a black golden retriever. So and she's just so much fun. And I take her for what I love having a dog off the lead. So lots of people are always coming up and saying, "What is she?" So they didn't realise. But yeah, so she's pretty much like a black golden retriever, which is just so cute.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things you just kind of mentioned a bit earlier on, but it just stuck in my craw, and I just wanted to touch on it though. Was you said during your 20s and 30s, or early 30s, you were like quite a traveler, and gained like a lot of life experience that way. I wanted to ask, because it's applicable to a lot of our students that we get that aren't exactly your straight out of school, but mid-20s, late 20s, and even 30s, 40s, who are considering either a career change or, as like yourself, have been traveling. Do you think that kind of life experience helped you then when you yeah.
Absolutely. And I see it, not just me, but I see it in the students. So we've always had mature age students, and I've got to say, a lot of the time, the mature age students do really, really well. They're studying, they're making financial sacrifices because often they're not being supported by mum and dad, so they're living out of home. They've seen the world. They know that there are a lot of options out there, and then they're deciding what they're going to spend their time on. And this industry, you need to be passionate, and that's what they bring. So they might not bring, pre-existing skills, but they bring the passion, and then they just learn those skills so quickly.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think it's a great bonus. And also, if you're thinking of doing writing or content creation, really, you need to understand the world and have seen a bit of the world to be creating content for people to engage with it, because you're creating for a lot of different age groups. So often they just can bring that different sort of level of maturity, knowing what they want, not wasting time on things they don't want, but bringing a real level of fun as well. You know, it's not all serious, but they just kind of know what they want, and they just focus on doing it and learning what they need. And often a little bit older, they're not scared to ask questions if they don't understand, which is great, because no one knows. Definitely, we don't know everything, even as teachers, and so no one knows everything, and you've just got to be asking those questions so that you can fill all the gaps in your own knowledge. So they're often really brave to ask the questions and then put themselves in positions that I've often had people saying, I'm really scared about doing camera on this film, but I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm like, yeah, just do it, just give it a go. And because it can be confronting doing, camera is a confronting role, directing is a confronting role. Like the creative process can be quite confronting, and often see these mature age students just leaping in, being really brave, and just coming out with content that means something to them. Often they'll make passion projects, and we love passion projects. And often they're the sort of things that do get into film festivals, which is a great thing as well. So we actually at MAPS, we had Maha Mahdi. I think she was in her late 70s when she was doing MAPS, which was fantastic.
That's awesome.
So I don't think there's any age barrier to learning. I think that's the thing that keeps you young.
Yeah, especially with technology these days, like you can just switch and change jobs, and you're in such high demand when you have these skills. Companies these days are paying so much for your ability. So no, that's fantastic, and couldn't agree more that there is no age limit to it. All right, so for our listeners as well, some of them might not have heard the MAPS Film School before. So Emma, I believe in the background as well, we're going to be playing some footage from the MAPS Film School students, some of the footage that they've created, some of the shorts that they've created. But Ash, if you just want to touch on what is MAPS Film School, and a little bit about the history of it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so MAPS was funded by the Education Department of South Australia. So it started out sort of 35 years at a boys' technical college, and it was originally called Media and Personal Skills. So it was for the students who, needed to learn how to wash and have communication skills, and it sort of evolved over time through some fantastic teachers, particularly Peter Thurmer and Lee Sutton. They're the two teachers in the past who really built MAPS into what it is that we currently know. Sandra Cook and I took over probably about 5 years ago. But Peter and Lee really built it into something quite amazing, funded through the Education Department. We were in a rustic looking portable building. Like the floorboards creaked. We didn't have a lot of resources. We had, as you can see from the footage here, we had good cameras. That shot was taken on a low loader. So we get the students to organise all their own locations. This is Nikki's film. He went on to work at an advertising agency. So there's just so many students who've gone through MAPS. The building really was held together with gaffer tape. But we did have good technology. We had Matt Squire, who's the technical officer for the past 10 years, and he just would, the cameras would come back broken and cords, and he'd just solder things back together and send them out again. And that
Both
was
went
a
hand in
good way
hand.
to learn. That is the way to learn filmmaking, because you'll never have enough time, you'll never have enough money, and the equipment, even if you're paying top dollar, things don't always work. So
Yeah.
it was a really good training ground for filmmakers. So it was just it is just South Australian based. I sort of say was, but we
Yeah.
kind of exist now at the AIE. This will be our first year at the AIE. And you just find that so many people who were working in the industry had come through MAPS, and so we would often always have a lot of people on work experience, so people were passing on that knowledge. And it's a really good way to learn. So I did MAPS after I did uni. I was going to do honours, and I decided to do MAPS because I spoke to people in the industry, and they said you're more likely to get a job through MAPS. And the reason is because of all the problems was one thing, but also the fact that it's just make a film, dust yourself off, make another film, dust yourself off, make another film, and it's just constantly making films. And I kind of
Learn
think,
by doing.
filmmaking is a little bit like learning a musical instrument, and you can't just sit and listen to an orchestra and think that you're a musician. It's like you can't just keep watching films and analysing films and think that you're and then get one shot to make one film. You need to get out there, make mistakes, take risks, and then polish it. And then also you need to have a framework where you have staff who say, it's okay, you're moving on to the next project. So we have really strict deadlines that would just keep moving people through, and you try lots of different crew roles because you don't know what you might want. People see the credits of a film and they kind of imagine what they want to do, but it's not till you actually do that role that you really understand the ins and outs of it. So we make sure that people get a chance to try lots of different things. And so it was just a fantastic course. But for the past, I think it's about for 10 years, the South Australian government no longer funds higher adult courses. And so every year at MAPS, we had to apply for an exemption from the government to survive. And the government every year would give us 1 year extension, which meant the building was falling down around us because the school could never invest in us any further. And last year they said, this is it. Like every year, every year they're kind of like saying, this is it. But they were very much like last year. They're like, that's it. We are not ever giving you another extension. You're the only course that we fund, and you should be going, people should be going to other institutions. And so that's when we spoke to John at the AIE and Anne-Marie here, and they sort of said, look, we're thinking of setting up virtual production. Do you know anything about it? And we were like, we know nothing, but it sounds cool. And, and it really is and we love new technology and we just thought it was just perfect timing, and it's really happened really quite quickly and over the space of a year, which was a lot of work by Anne-Marie and John in the background to transfer MAPS from the education department to the AIE. And now we're fitting into this fantastic, so I'm sitting in Anne-Marie's office now, actually. We're sitting in the AIE building, ready to roll out our course tomorrow, which is like super exciting. And the building that we used to teach in has already been demolished. So that's already gone. So the school where we were is just no more. So, so MAPS has had a long history, and we hope that, there's a lot of goodwill in the South Australian film industry towards MAPS. And so we will have an open day here to sort of show the industry what virtual production is. And we've got some great students who have come over with us. And, so we feel that we'll still have that same learn by doing mentality. Just the equipment's quite a lot fancier than it used to be.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice thing. I remember Sandra, who is one of the other MAPS teachers here in the Adelaide campus, she was giving a presentation during information evening, and she was saying it's a really nice kind of mix between AIE and MAPS coming together now. So MAPS, you've got such a rich history and knowledge of traditional filmmaking, but possibly lacked some of like the fancier equipment or the funding. And then you've got AIE, who are on the forefront of new technology, being innovative, being creative, so it's coming all together. So we're really, really, really excited about the new course, which is a great leeway into my next question, which was, do you want to just talk a little bit about the film and virtual production course now at AIE, as we have some students starting tomorrow, but for some of the viewers out there, they might not know anything about it. So just a little bit of information about this new course.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the AIE, the new course that we're running, like virtual production, I'm not really sure what we're seeing right. Oh, this is not really sure what that content is. Sorry, virtual production can mean a lot of things. So it's in our context, virtual production means shooting against a lead wall that will be set up in the studio, and the content on that lead wall will be either generated in Unreal, which is kind of a games program, which ties in so well to the working with the AIE pre-existing game students and VFX students. So it's a perfect marriage in that regard, using the Unreal Engine. And then we also, for the backgrounds, you can shoot background plates and then display them in the virtual world. So the best way to think about it is the Mandalorian. There was that program has all been played by, like you look at the Mandalorian on the Disney Channel, and it's all generated in a virtual environment. So that's what virtual production, because virtual production can mean a lot of things for different people, but in our context, that's what it means. There's a couple of slides, I don't know, Emma, if you could find them, which were just a shot of a warehouse, and then the studio and the warehouse, which were just a couple of things. At some point we might pull them up and we can I can sort of talk through what that is. So we've got ARRI cameras in the studio. We've got studios now. This course is going to be running in Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra and Adelaide. So we've got studios in every one of those cities where, well, the lead wall is actually in boxes right now, but it's about to be set up down here in Adelaide. So we've got the new studio being built, which is fantastic. We'll have ARRI cameras to shoot it. And then so the students will be learning that real hands-on practical way of learning. And because the AI's VP's only just sort of started out, an example, if you're interested in it, is go to ABC iView and the TV series Fires, which was written by Belinda Chalco. That's a Matchbox Pictures production. The first episode, they're in a fire truck, and that truck was put in the studio, and there's a lead wall that they're filming against and a massive ember machine throwing embers over the truck. And when you watch that footage, like Fires is a really good example, you look at that and you just kind of think, you can't believe that that's sort of a virtual production like it. And it's what's the beauty of virtual production. The thing that I'm really excited about is it creates a really safe environment for your actors. It creates a safe environment for the crew. They were saying, the person who put that together, saying what would normally take potentially 2 days to shoot on location took them half a day to shoot. So yes, there's extra expenses in virtual production because you're hiring a studio, but you're not transporting 40 crew to a remote location. You're not putting them up with accommodation. They're not having to shoot at crazy hours. You can be in a virtual production studio and you just press a button and it says you'll have dawn light. No, I don't really like that. Okay, let's have midday sun. Nah, let's put the sunset on. Okay, nighttime. Sunset, and it's all a press of a button. So those lighting setup come a lot quicker. So you offset the cost of hiring the studio and the equipment by being able to speed up your production, as well as having and more of a standardized work environment for the crew. I think, cultures of crews can get out of whack sometimes, particularly when people are away on location, and it kind of creates an environment where people can come in more 9 to 5, work normal. It becomes a little bit more of a normal job. And it's great for people with mobility issues or anything like that. So hopefully it'll open up sort of space for directors who do have issues about going to remote locations. So there are a lot of bonuses with virtual production, and it's an emerging field. And with any emerging field, we don't know where it's going to go. It'll be based on what the artists, student artists and student filmmakers and current filmmakers they'll be pushing the boundaries. And there are so many boundaries to push with this technology, which is fantastic. So even in a year, there'll be so many other things to be talking about that haven't even been done but have just emerged in that year, which makes it such an exciting time to be around, because as a student, you could create something that then goes on and gets modeled in the industry, that you could come up with an idea that no one's thought about before of a way to do it. So that's sort of in a snapshot. I can go on and on for hours about virtual production. Can I go on more or not?
Absolutely. If you wanted to. I was going to lead you with my next question too, and this actually might tie in with talking about it more. If you're a student currently about to start your course tomorrow, what would the first year students expect out of this year?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing you need to learn the basics of filmmaking. We're not going to just drop you in virtual production. So straight away, you'll just within the first week, you're making a short film as a team. It's all about working in teams. Filmmaking is all about collaboration, and so it's learning to work constructively with people, making sure that you get what you want, but you're working in a way that you're also taking on board other people's ideas. Ideas are always strengthened by lots of eyes on them. So you'll be making a doco pretty quickly. Then in the second round, it's a double up round where everyone's making lots of films, and then you'll be working in the virtual production studio as well as the real world. So you can go out and shoot your own plates, or you could use some Unreal Engine stuff that the AIE's bought. And you'll be learning the basics of virtual production. Then we've got the drama round, and during all these times you'll be circulating through different roles of producing, directing, camera, audio and editing. So you cycle through those roles, working with lots of different people, and then you do your drama round. In the drama round, it could be a traditional drama, or you could go and put it as, you could include virtual production because the studio will be there for you to use. And then the final round, you'll go to Canberra because they have a larger studio. And with that, you'll be, before going, the students will be working with Silver Sun Pictures, which is a virtual production specialist in Canberra, and they'll be helping with the technology there. So you'll have virtual collaborations. You'll be taught how to do virtual collaborations, and you'll do all your previews in Adelaide before you get to the Canberra studio. But in the Canberra studio, then you'll be working there with Silver Sun and Andy Marriott there and that team. And so all of the students will be transported over and put up in accommodation over there. And you get to make your final virtual production piece with a lot of, more bells and whistles than what we've got in Adelaide, just because the screen is bigger and there's just sort of larger capacity there for specky shots. And so you'll be learning a combo of traditional filmmaking, because that's absolutely vital, but you'll also be complementing that with virtual production. So you'll be then, when you head out into the industry, you'll have this understanding of traditional filmmaking, but the bit that hopefully you'll get extra job from is that you'll actually understand or how to run a virtual production studio and how to direct in a virtual production context.
And I'm not sure, just quickly, Emma, if you can hear us just in the back, I can't remember if I did send you through a picture or some video of the Canberra studio, but if you could potentially, I guess, find some, there might be some on the website potentially, that'd be cool. There is one thing that I do want to ask about, because I've heard about it, but obviously I'm no film specialist, but a Techno Dolly. So I'd heard the AIE does have a Techno Dolly, and it's a pretty exciting, part of
it's crazy. So John's like, I was talking
technology.
to Jim the other day, and I'm like, Jim, and he's like, yeah, Jim, James Cameron. I was talking to Jim, and he was just saying that we really need a Techno Dolly, and I'm like, well, do we? And he's like, well, there's only 7 that are in the world, and I think one of them should be ours. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Okay, so now we have a Techno Dolly. So we've got $1 million Techno Dolly that's going to live in Canberra. But yeah, I mean, it's totally cool. Yeah, of course, James Cameron would say get a Techno Dolly. So yeah, and it's an amazing piece of kit. So you can program in movements. It will replicate those movements. It will always keep the same angle to the screen as well, which is really, really important. So there are just so many things that this camera, so that's why when you're doing your final project, that you'll be able to create some really spectacular shots. It's all about the pre-production. But yeah, the Techno Dolly is just like I couldn't believe that. I thought that was just one of these conversations, and then suddenly it's like, oh no, I bought it. I was like, oh right, okay, cool, we've got one.
There's some pretty awesome equipment that students get to play with, I think, in their years here. So excellent. So I guess that's a bit of a snapshot of what they're looking, or some students who are coming into the course this year would be looking for. Maybe, I guess, what would some advice be for those students from you going into your first year
coming
of study?
Into the course tomorrow? Show up on time, please. The film industry is very much about showing up on time, but you'll learn that. Oh, look, just come to be open. Like, we're all learning. We always say mistakes are welcome. Like, if you're not making
Yeah.
any mistakes at film school, then you're not working hard enough. You're not pushing yourself to the limits. So
Yeah.
there's a place where you're going to make lots of mistakes. You're going to make lots of friends. Just come with an open attitude. If you receive feedback, it's based on your project. It's never personal, but we do push our students hard to a high level so that they can make films that will compete in festivals. You know, you need that the industry is competitive, but it's always done with, it's never personal. It's all about making sure that you will walk out of AIE with the skills that you need to get employment, because that's what makes Sandra and I happy more than anything else, and all the teachers, is when students say, oh, we've got this job, or we're about to make a feature film. A few students are about to make a feature film. The Raka Raka Boys are about to shoot, Danny and Michael Philippou, they're about to shoot their feature film at the South Australian Film Corp with Causeway Films, which is Sam Jennings. So, you know, amazing success has come out of MAPS, and that just is really, we're really happy with that. And that's just, so we just think, come with that attitude that you're ready to learn. That's all, and just have fun. You know, it's going to be a challenging time. Making films is challenging. It's like, you know, art or music, filmmaking. The people who survive it are the people who love it, because it is challenging, and you do sort of have to be in love with it. But if you've got that love and the passion, then it's a really, really rewarding industry to be involved with. So I just say, you know, come, be open, be ready to make mistakes, and just to learn, and bring a notebook
and show up on time.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we are nearing the end. It's 4 o'clock, so we've been going for half an hour now, but I do have just a couple final questions for you before we say farewell. I guess the first one I want to ask is, with the Australian film industry, a lot of students I speak to that love film, they watch a lot of American films, they watch a lot of Asian, European, but some students just don't know much about like the Australian film industry, like where it's at, and also a big one is where it's headed. So where do you see the Australian film industry in the short and long term?
Yeah, I mean, and they're probably watching content that they didn't realise was made in Australia. You know, like Mortal Kombat. Anne-Marie was putting up the Mortal Kombat, you know, poster is made in Australia. Gold, which is on Stan right now, I think, was sort of, it's in a Zac Efron film. It's in a non-specific place, but, you know, we know it's shot in Australia. So there's a lot of stuff that is shot that they're potentially watching that they don't realise is Australian. They should also watch Australian stuff. Like, there's some great stuff on iView that we're always making some great content. But now that the streaming services are buying content and getting, you know, content made, it's fantastic for the Australian film industry. We've always had the kind of the indie films, particularly South Australia used to be sort of the home of indie filmmaking, but now we've got the Adelaide studios we're attracting much bigger budget films. So if you've got the studios in the Gold Coast and Sydney and Melbourne, so we do have big studio films. So it's very diverse, the film and TV industry in Australia. So there's lots of different niches that exist. And I think now that we're incorporating virtual production, I think one of John's main aims is to make sure that we're fully trained Australian crew, so that when we can keep attracting these big projects, adding on virtual production on top of it, so that we do become virtual production specialists in Australia, because we have access to space. That's the thing. So the studios are big enough to hold the capacity to have these screens. And so I think the industry is just going to go from strength to strength. I think we've always had a strong industry. You know, you look at the films from the 70s and 80s. There's just so many fantastic, iconic films, and it just continues happening every year. There's always something good that's coming out. So I think if the people aren't watching Australian films, you should look at Australian films and start looking about what is out there, and not just focusing on the easy things on Netflix. But you might be surprised that some of the things that you are watching do actually come from Australia as well. But I see that the industry just going from strength to strength. It just continues to do that. I think Australians have a knack of wanting to tell a story. Australians get work all over the world. They're really highly sought after crew, because we're just known for working hard and working safe, and safety is such an important thing in the film industry. And we teach a lot of stuff about safety. Sandra particularly teaches a whole lot of safety units before you're even allowed out on set. So I think we'll just keep going from strength to strength, but we'll continue attracting these international projects. I think, you know, it's kind of hand in hand, and then and then adding in virtual production on top of it. So I think it's back in the day, you'd say, I want to be a filmmaker, probably back in my day, the 90s, and people go, oh, that's a crazy idea, but now, because content is everywhere, it's not such a crazy idea. Like, people are getting jobs, like we get students jobs in the industry. Because as you know, we're all walking around with a screen in our pocket that's constantly needing content. So there are actually jobs out there. So I just feel that the Australian industry is in a really good shape. Screen Australia, the funding agencies, we're so lucky in Australia to have funding agencies that are so well managed, like Screen Australia, and I didn't really know about the South Australian Film Corp, but they're so helpful in getting emerging filmmakers in and getting their foot in the door, which is fantastic. And we also have the Mercury CX here in Adelaide. So there are a lot of kind of government support to help the industry as well, which is really, really important. You go to America and there's no government support. So it's a very different system here in Australia that we do. People complain that, that my film didn't get funded, but some films get funded. That's the thing. Whereas if you're looking at an American system, nothing's kind of getting funded except via the studios. So, so, and the, Screen Australia puts out, they've got the Indigenous arm, and when they're making some fantastic Indigenous content, and they also had the Gender Matters content. So they're sort of opening up areas for people who aren't normally represented in film, which is fantastic. So I think hopefully I just expect it's just going to go from strength to strength, really, the Australian film industry.
No, I completely echo that. I think it's a fantastic and a very opportunistic time for students who are interested to move into this field, because I think wonderful things are going to happen over the next 5, 10, 15 years. It really is gearing up to be that way. And as you said, the students are just getting jobs. So that's what's happening. I know here in South Australia, Anne-Marie, who is our head of school for the Adelaide campus, she is on the board for the South Australian Film Corp, and they are the message that the Film Corp are relaying is just, we want film crew. Like, we need film crew. There's actually not enough of us here. So for students to be able to do or create passion projects, do something they love and earn money, like, I guess that's meant to be the dream, right? All right, excellent. So my last question then, before we just jump over to Emma and have a bit of a look at the website, a bit more of a personal one for you. What are you looking forward to the most in this coming year?
Oh, wow. Okay. Meeting all the new cohort is always such an exciting time, and then just finding out what type of films they want to make, and then help problem solve with that and figuring out the technology. So I can't wait for all of us to be learning together. I'm so excited about learning a bit of Unreal. So never really been involved in game engine before, but learning a bit about Unreal, and just excited about the potential of what we can come up with, because we'll be making stuff that just hasn't been done before, and that's just so exciting. So it's not like we'll be replicating things. People will be saying, I think I want to do this, and we'll go, well, let's try and figure out how we're going to do that. And that's just such an exciting day at work.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. Like, it absolute pleasure having you on, and it got me really excited about the course, as I was already at a 9.5 out of 10. So, but no, I'm really excited. So thank you so much for being with us.
Yep. No, it's been great. Thanks, Matt.
Awesome. All right. So, so Emma, I'll throw it to you. We've got some, I guess, for anyone who is interested to learn more, we do have our wonderful website, which has a huge amount of resources for you. So I'll pass over to Emma and we can jump on. Oh, Emma, you are on mute, I believe.
How strange. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we have a huge amount of stuff that we've talked about today, but the main one is, if you are interested in this course, obviously, make sure you check it out on our website, and you can find out lots of information. Like, for example, that's a picture of our virtual production set that we had set up in Canberra a while ago. Unfortunately, we couldn't get those videos, but make sure you come along to one of the open days to actually see the Techno Dolly here in Canberra, or just go and see the virtual production set on your own campus. We'll have information evenings coming up soon. So yeah, there's lots and lots of projects we're being involved in. So if that's something you are interested in, make sure to check it out. As I mentioned, we do have an information evening coming up. So just click along to our events and you'll be able to find our information evening on there, and you can register for that in March. If you are interested in any of our other live streams, we've talked to some amazing people who've been in the film industry as well. If you're interested in learning more about virtual productions, we do have our the live stream there with Antonio, and we've got one from a little bit earlier back with Matt Barker and Jack Condon, who have been working on some huge films like Marvel films that have been creating virtual productions. So make sure to check them out too. Well, thank you so much, Ash, for coming on this afternoon. I've learnt so much. I mean, I only get to deal with like our virtual productions and film teachers here in Canberra, so it's always interesting to hear from other teachers in other campuses as well. So thank you so much for joining us. That's it for us for today. Please make sure to check out our next live stream, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, guys. Bye.